Is it okay to represent yourself as Jesus? Today's human training is a slow burn take on that Trump Jesus image from a couple weeks ago. Slow burn take is my attempt at a careful reflection to arrive at a more developed idea than a hot take. So honestly, when I first saw the image, I wasn't surprised or scandalized at all. It really felt precisely in line with everything else this guy's been about. Self-aggrandizement, militant nationalism, these are like two of his favorite things. But I knew evangelical Christians were probably not going to like it, and that gave me pause. Because in my version of Christianity, we're supposed to want to be like Christ. So why should it be upsetting if someone presents themselves as Jesus? And the reason has to go back to how evangelicals work. And I came up through evangelical adjacent churches and processing this stuff. So this is kind of from someone who's been there. And you need to know two early church heresies to understand what's going on here. The first is Gnosticism, which believes that the material world is a hindrance to the spiritual. So it's basically evil. You have to find this special knowledge to escape into the spiritual. And the second is Docetism, which believes that Jesus did not actually have a body of flesh, but was a being of like light. And this helps get away from the dicey problem of God suffering pain and death. He didn't have a real body to suffer. So Gnosticism gives the evangelical disdain for things of this world like sexual pleasure, dancing, music, and often dovetails nicely with end times thinking and a desire for the world to end, usually violently. While Docetism gives us the images of Jesus with bright light emanating from him. You can see both in the image. Obviously, the bright parts, the light is the aesthetic parts. The Gnostic parts is really the whole aesthetic. It's ethereal, it's unconnected to the physical context. They're literally in the sky. And that's why I think this image went too far for many evangelicals. This was an image of the president as their sky god Jesus, who was supposed to be totally different from us in order to be pure and holy and worthy of our worship. The Jesus they worshiped didn't really get his feet dirty, didn't really drink real alcohol, never got morning wood. That would make him too physical and kind of icky, actually. So Trump's post was not about associating himself with a humble human who challenged social conventions, to criticize the rich and powerful, who said, love thy neighbor and do as I do. It was about elevating himself to the status of the spirit being, who by definition is not a dirty human. Evangelicals don't like the idea that one can become like Christ because they're profoundly uncomfortable with the idea that Christ was fully human. Better to keep him inaccessible, because that inaccessibility in turn enables the system of hierarchy and gatekeeping, such as figuring out who is and who isn't Christian, what is and what isn't literal in the Bible. So in other words, this Gnostic Docetic Jesus is the God of the powerful and not of the weak. He must remain wholly other, so we don't have to reckon with the material and moral and historical consequences of our actions. Everything is apotheosized into divine history. But that image collapsed the distance between the filthy physicality and pure divinity. That's why it went too far. Here's the thing. I've been on a deconstruction journey really for decades. I still have a hard time reconciling myself to embodiment sometimes. When you're taught morality is good and evil, black and white, and you have a strong superego like I do, it's hard to leave some of these things behind, so I kind of get it. But that's actually why I'm drawn to the arts, because they also collapse the distance between the physical and the spiritual. They do so in a way, I believe, that insists on the holiness of the physical. This is the world that God made and called it good. And when it's not good, it's usually because we perverted it somehow. And that's where we need discernment, and that's hard work. And that's why it's nice to have somebody who can hold up a book and say, here's all you need to know. I don't think that's the world God brought us into, though. So let's look at something in the arts. Here's a poem by a friend of mine, Tania, who actually is written in response to this image and is about exactly what we're talking about. It's called What Your Jesus Picture Got Wrong. I didn't hold a ball of fire, but stooped to stir up mud with my spit and daubed it on a blind man's eyes. I didn't surround myself with whites and warplanes, but lingered among the murky colonnades, where a paralytic who 1 minute lay in his waist picked up his mat and walked the next. And oh, the horse-faced losers, the brown and beleaguered, the women who grabbed me by the hem. They didn't reach for a crimson mantle, but a workaday tunic that picked up dust and spiders in the frays. You keep forgetting that I shat in a hole in the ground, not a gilded toilet, and that the only stars and stripes that fluttered behind me were my flays of Rome-whipped skin. You see, beloved, I am God enough to trod the dirt from which I made you. I am also God enough, you'll one day learn, to send the rich away empty and throw the leaders from their thrones, to resurrect the roses you paved over, to flick your golden towers off the moon. Stay human, y'all.